She had no one for Christmas until the cowboy knocked with his kids and a warm supper. Snow drifted in soft spirals outside the window as Emily Harper pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching the world blur white. The quiet was heavy, too heavy, like the kind of silence you hear after a door closes for the last time. For the first Christmas in her 32 years, she was completely alone. Nothing about this night felt like the holidays. The tiny tree in the corner blinked weakly, a string of thrift store lights fighting for life. A single ornament, a ceramic star the size of her palm, hung crookedly on the tallest branch. She'd bought it years ago at a winter market with her mother. Now her mother was gone, her friends scattered, and the little Montana town she'd moved to 6 months ago still didn't feel like home. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. Maybe next year, she whispered, though she didn't believe it. The wind moaned through the old farmhouse boards, and she shivered even though the heater hummed at full blast. She'd cooked nothing for dinner. There seemed no point. Holidays, she'd always believed, were meant to be shared. Without someone to share them with, the day was just another date on a calendar. Or so she thought. A sudden rap cut through the stillness. Emily startled. No one ever came this far down the road, especially not in a snowstorm. She hesitated, pulse quickening. Another knock, louder this time. Emily crossed the living room and opened the door just a crack enough to let a rush of frozen air blast her cheeks. What she saw made her blink in confusion. A man stood on the porch, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dusted with snow cowboy hat and a thick shearling coat. Beside him were 2 children, a boy maybe 10, holding a wrapped dish in mittened hands, and a little girl clutching a stuffed horse. "Evening, ma'am," the cowboy said, his voice warm despite the cold biting around them. "Hope we're not both airing you on Christmas." Emily opened the door wider, bewildered. No, it's fine. Can I help you?" The cowboy shifted awkwardly, his boots crunching softly on the icy boards. "Name's Caleb Turner. We live about a mile up the ridge. Wind knocked out the power over at our place. Kids and I made supper earlier, figured we shouldn't let it go to waste, and well," he cleared his throat and offered a small, almost shy smile. "Didn't feel right eatin' it alone when we know our new neighbor's spendin' Christmas by herself." Emily's breath caught. She didn't know what surprised her more, the fact that he knew she was alone, or that he cared. The boy stepped forward and lifted the steaming dish. "It's stew. Dad makes it with biscuits." The little girl piped up, "And Mama's herbs," before falling silent, eyes dropping. A shadow crossed Caleb's face, just a flicker, but Emily noticed. There was a story there. She hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. "Please, come in. All of you." Warmth rushed back into the house as they entered, bringing with them the scent of snow, pine, and something she hadn't felt in months, company. Human presence. Life. Caleb set the dish on the kitchen counter while the children shed coats and boots, exclaiming softly at her tiny Christmas tree. "You didn't have to do this," Emily said, her voice softer than she intended. "Maybe not," Caleb replied, removing his hat, "but sometimes the things we don't have to do are exactly the ones folks remember." His words settled into the room like a blanket. They ate together at her small wooden table, for mismatched plates, 3 pairs of eager hands, and one overwhelmed heart that didn't quite know what to do with so much sudden warmth. The stew was rich and savory, the biscuits perfectly flaky. Emily tried not to cry as the little girl asked if she could put the ceramic star on the top branch, because it looks lonely there. Conversation flowed easily. Caleb talked about ranch work, the cattle they were trying to keep warm during the storm, how his wife had passed 2 winters ago, and how he'd been doing his best since. Emily shared how she'd moved here hoping for a fresh start after years of caregiving and loss. The kids chimed in with stories about school, their dog named Pickles, and their mission to learn how to lasso. Then came the moment that cracked something open inside her. The boy looked at her suddenly and asked, "Miss Emily, do you think Christmas feels different when you don't got anyone?" Emily froze. Her throat tightened. She didn't expect the question. Didn't prepare an answer. But before she could speak, Caleb gently placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Son, Christmas ain't about how many folks you got. It's about how much love you're willin' to give." He looked at Emily, then really looked, and she felt the truth of his words settle deep in her bones. Maybe it wasn't that she had no one. Maybe she just hadn't opened the door yet. When supper was finished, the kids begged to help tidy up, giggling as they chased crumbs across the counter. Caleb helped her carry out the trash and checked her generator, making sure she wouldn't lose heat during the night. Snow kept falling in soft, undisturbed sheets. Before they left, the little girl surprised Emily with a tight hug around the waist. "Merry Christmas," she whispered. Emily's eyes stung. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Caleb paused on the porch, his silhouette framed by the falling snow. "We're just up the ridge if you need anything. Just holler. And Emily, if you're free tomorrow, we'd love to have you for lunch. Kids have been atching to show someone the sledding hill." She smiled, a real one she hadn't felt in a long while. "I'd like that." As the trio walked back through the swirling white, lantern light bobbing in Caleb's hand, Emily stood in the doorway watching them go. Her house felt different now, warmer, fuller, as if the air itself remembered laughter. For the first time that day, she didn't feel alone. She closed the door gently, touching the ceramic star on the tree. It no longer looked crooked or lonely, it looked like a promise. Maybe kindness was its own kind of miracle. Maybe Christmas didn't arrive on its own. Maybe sometimes, it knocked. And this year, she answered.